This story, titled The Wedding That Wasn't. I still remember the day I met David. I was 32, living in a cozy little apartment in Cincinnati, surrounded by books I adored and a cat named Whiskers who seemed to think she owned the place. Life was simple, a quiet rhythm of work, friends, and moments of solitude that I treasured. Then David walked in, and everything changed. He was charming in the way that makes you both smile and roll your eyes. He'd tell these ridiculous jokes that shouldn't have been funny, but somehow, coming from him, they were. He made me laugh like no one else ever had, and he had this way of looking at me, like I was the only person in the room. We met at a friend's dinner party. I'd been reluctant to go, exhausted after a long week, but something nudged me to show up. Fate, I guess. David was sitting across the table, talking animatedly about his favorite hiking spots, and when our eyes met, it was like the rest of the room faded away. We started dating soon after, and it didn't take long for me to realize he was the one. He had this way of making me feel safe, seen, and loved. Every day with him felt like an adventure, and I started to imagine a future together. A home, maybe even kids. A year and a half into our relationship, he proposed. It wasn't some grand, orchestrated event. It was just the two of us, sitting on the porch of his house as the sun set, sipping wine and talking about life. He pulled out a ring, his hands trembling slightly, and asked me to be his wife. I said yes, tears streaming down my face, and in that moment everything felt perfect. But life has a way of throwing curveballs, doesn't it? David's parents were complicated. They were polite enough when we first met, but there was always an undercurrent of tension. His mother, in particular, seemed to have an unspoken checklist of who she thought her son should marry, and I didn't tick all the boxes. I wasn't from their small, tight-knit community. I didn't have the right pedigree, the right connections. I tried to brush it off, telling myself that their opinion didn't matter. David loved me, and that was enough. Or so I thought. As the wedding date approached, the tension with his family grew. They'd make little comments here and there, subtle digs wrapped in politeness. "Are you sure you're ready for this, dear? Marriage is a big step." Or, "David's always had such high standards. It's so important to marry someone who fits in with the family." David would brush it off, telling me not to take it personally. "They'll come around," he'd say. "They just need time." But time only seemed to make things worse. Then came the day everything unraveled. We were sitting in our wedding planner's office, going over final details, the seating chart, the floral arrangements, the music. I was excited, nervous, and a little overwhelmed, but mostly, I was happy. This was it. We were about to start the rest of our lives together. But David was quiet, distracted. He kept checking his phone, his leg bouncing nervously under the table. I asked him if everything was okay, and he forced a smile, saying he was just tired. Later that evening, as we sat on the couch, he finally said the words that shattered my world. "I think we need to put the wedding on hold." At first, I thought he was joking, but the look in his eyes told me he wasn't. "What do you mean, put it on hold?" I asked, my voice trembling. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "My parents? They're struggling with this. They don't think we're a good match. They're worried about how this will affect the family. I need more time to figure things out." I stared at him, my heart pounding. "Figure things out? David, we're supposed to get married in 2 months. You're telling me now that you're not sure?" "It's not that I'm not sure," he said quickly. "I love you. I want to be with you. But maybe we should elope. Avoid the drama. We can still have our happily ever after. Just not like this." His words felt like a punch to the gut. Elope? After all the planning, the excitement, the dreams we'd built together? It felt like he was asking me to settle for less, to shrink our love into something small and secret just to appease his parents. I didn't know what to say. My mind raced with questions, doubts, fears. Was I really the problem? Could love be enough to overcome this? Or was this a sign that our foundation wasn't as strong as I'd thought? I spent the next few days in a haze, replaying our conversation over and over in my mind. David tried to reassure me, saying he just needed time to smooth things over with his family. But his words rang hollow. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being sidelined, that my feelings and dreams were being overshadowed by his parents' disapproval. One evening I sat in our bedroom, staring at my engagement ring. It was beautiful, a symbol of the love we'd shared. But now it felt heavy, like a weight I couldn't bear. I thought about everything we'd been through, the good times and the challenges. I thought about the future we'd envisioned, and the compromises I'd already made. And I asked myself, Was this the kind of partnership I wanted? One where I'd always feel like I was fighting for a place in his life, for acceptance from his family? When David came home that night, I was waiting for him in the living room. "David," I said, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me, "we need to talk." He nodded, sitting down across from me. "I love you," I began, my heart aching with every word. "But I can't do this. I can't marry someone who doesn't stand by me, who lets other people dictate our future. I need a partner who's all in, who fights for us no matter what." He looked at me, his eyes filled with sadness. "I thought I was doing the right thing," he said. "I thought I was protecting you from all of this." "But you weren't," I said gently. "You were protecting them, and in the process, you hurt me." Tears streamed down his face as he reached for my hand. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I know," I said, my voice breaking. "But sorry isn't enough. I need more than words. I need actions. And until you can give me that, I don't think we can move forward." The days after that conversation were some of the hardest I've ever endured. David moved out of our shared home to give me space, and suddenly the house felt too big, too empty. Every corner seemed to hold a memory. Our laughter in the kitchen, late-night talks on the couch, quiet mornings with coffee on the porch. I'd thought love was enough, that we could overcome anything as long as we had each other. But now, I wasn't so sure. Love without action, without conviction, didn't feel like love at all. David called and texted every day, apologizing, asking if we could talk. But I wasn't ready. I needed time to process, to figure out what I wanted, who I was without him. I leaned on my friends during that time. They reminded me of my worth, of the strength I had forgotten in the whirlwind of trying to fit into someone else's life. One of them said something that stuck with me. "You shouldn't have to dim your light just to make someone else comfortable." That hit me hard. For too long, I'd been trying to mold myself into what I thought David's family wanted, ignoring the parts of me that made me, well, me. I started to see how much of myself I'd given away in the name of love, and it broke my heart. But amidst the pain, there was a small flicker of hope. Maybe this was a chance to rediscover myself, to rebuild my confidence and identity. I threw myself into work, into hobbies I'd neglected. I started painting again, something I hadn't done in years. It felt good to create, to lose myself in colors and shapes, to pour my emotions onto a canvas. Meanwhile, David was doing his own soul-searching. He went to therapy, something I'd suggested many times before, but he'd always brushed off. He started having difficult conversations with his parents, standing up for himself in ways he never had before. One day, a few weeks after our separation, he showed up at my door. I hadn't expected him, and seeing him standing there, looking nervous and uncertain, made my heart ache. "Can I come in?" he asked, his voice soft. I hesitated, then stepped aside, letting him in. We sat on the couch, the same one where we'd shared so many happy moments. He looked at me, his eyes filled with a mixture of regret and determination. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," he said, "and I realized I've been a coward. I've let my parents' opinions control my life. And in doing so, I've hurt the person I love most. You were right, I wasn't protecting you. I was protecting them, and that's not fair to you or to us." His words hung in the air, heavy with emotion. "I've talked to them," he continued. "I told them that I love you, that I'm going to marry you, with or without their approval. They didn't take it well, but that's their problem. I'm done living my life for them." Tears welled up in my eyes. This was the David I'd fallen in love with, the man who could make me feel like I was the only person in the world. "I don't expect you to forgive me right away," he said, his voice trembling. "But I want to prove to you that I'm serious about us. I'm all in. No more hesitation, no more doubts. I want to fight for us, for our future. Please give me another chance." I looked at him, my heart torn between hope and fear. I wanted to believe him, to trust that things could be different. But I also knew how much I'd been hurt, how much healing I still needed to do. "I need time," I said finally. "I need to see that your actions match your words. I love you, David, but I can't go through this again. If we're going to make this work, it has to be different. You have to be different." He nodded, his expression serious. "I understand. I'll wait as long as it takes. I'll do whatever it takes." Over the next few months, David kept his promise. He showed up for me in ways he never had before. He set boundaries with his parents, making it clear that their disapproval wouldn't dictate his choices. He supported me in my journey of self-discovery, encouraging me to chase my dreams and embrace my individuality. Slowly but surely, we rebuilt our relationship. It wasn't easy. There were setbacks, moments of doubt and fear. But through it all, we chose each other, again and again. When David proposed for the second time, it was different. This time, there were no doubts, no hesitation. He knelt before me, tears in his eyes, and said, "I've learned what it means to love someone fully, without conditions or reservations. You're my home, my partner, my everything. Will you marry me?" And this time, when I said yes, it felt like the beginning of something new, something stronger and more beautiful than I ever could have imagined. If this story resonates with you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.